So I want to talk about the analog man in a very specific context. And the context is how we select content, which means on a day-to-day basis we have to make decisions about how we make that selection. So I would like to talk about that particular topic. So we are all well aware that we have the Human Genome Project, something that defines the physical characteristics of our body, right? Now, we are clueless what it has inside and we don't know. That's the reason I say we are all well aware, but it is not something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And maybe it makes a lot of sense to have a natural extension of that into the mental characteristics of us, the way we think about it and the way we make decisions about it. And what's so special about the analog man? Life is not black and white. Life is shades of colors. Life is not yes or no, we have maybes. Life is not 0 and 1, we have numbers in between. So this is so typical of us that it goes in ranges. Nothing is so clear cut. That's the reason, that's the way God created us. So one of the challenges that we have is, how do we bridge the gap between the analog man and technologies? Because technologies tend to be very much clear-cut, 0, 1s, and so on. So I think this is one of the challenges that we're facing. Now, when you are an entrepreneur, or how you become an entrepreneur, it's not something that you are born and you are gifted with that, so you're going to be an entrepreneur. You pay attention to trends, and you see what things around you, and one day, when you see a few trends, all of a sudden, you say, aha. Now, we like to call it perfect storm. Typically, innovation occurs not because you have money. Innovation occurs because you see things and you pay attention to details and you realize something needs to change. So I would like to talk about 4 trends that draw our attention. The first one, if you remember, in the early days of when Google used to be the home screen on the PC, right? We were so lazy, we used to type Fandango because we did not want to type fandango.com into that. So everything went through Google. And what's so nice about it? That it was simple, right? So we have one search box, that inside that one search box, we search for screws, we search for cows, we search for movies, but almost by definition, it must be very shallow, because the vocabulary for cows cannot be the same vocabulary for movies. Now, some people refer to this phenomenon as horizontal solution. And the world is very much horizontal. But it's changing. And thanks to Google, now we live in a new era. We live in the application era. And some people refer to it as a vertical world. Because think about, if you have a smartphone, think about your life today. You don't go to Google as much as you used to go. You go to Fandango to book your tickets, you go to OpenTable to book your restaurants, you go to TechCrunch if you're interested in technology news. You don't go as much to Google anymore. You go to Maps if you need to get from point A to point B. And Google has no play in this particular environment. What does it mean? It means that each one of those applications need to develop their own search and recommendation engine. All of a sudden, instead of having one Google, one size fits all, now you need to build health recommendation and search engine, travel, books, movies, screws, cows, and you name it. So you have to have really a collection of search and recommendation engine for each vertical. The second phenomenon, which is somehow related to the previous one, is how many of you ever write this into the search box? Something wrong with you. And I will tell you what's wrong with me. I know you can tell me what's wrong with me, but I will tell you what's wrong with me.
Nothing is wrong with you.
Google did a very good job lowering the bar of our expectation. We know very well what works and what does not work. In other words, we think Google. It's not that Google thinks like us. In other words, depends now who compromises, so we compromised. In other words, we learned sometimes when we need to search for something like what was the economy in France after World War I, we have to use brackets and commas, and we have to be so tricky. So maybe Google will understand us. So that means there is a technology gap. The good news that some companies started to get it. Now, we always listen to parents to say, my child is so brilliant, he can operate an iPad. And the fact is very simple, that Steve Jobs was so genius. And he was genius because he used analog design. He used something, if I would ask you, what makes iPhone and iPad so successful, most likely you will use the term intuitive. What does it mean, intuitive? Analog design. Which means it was created in such a way that we can control the speed and all other characteristics, then so-called the brilliant child can operate the iPad. Another example is Xbox Kinect. In other words, you act in a most free way, your whole analog capabilities come along, and that being reflected on the screen. So this is already a good example how analog man gets a full reflection into technology. One more thing that we have to pay attention to, people write about things. People write reviews about doctors, movies, sports, and do you know what the frustrating thing is? We can write all we wish, machine will never understand us. Now that already creates a frustration point, because you may say, if I could write this way, why can't I search this way? Why can't I say witty? Because I know what witty is. And people write so much thing, machine do not understand us. This is a gap that we have today between analog man and technology. And the other thing that we have in a digital era is tsunami of content. Really, we have a large catalog of everything, especially lifestyle product, especially entertainment, books, games, travels, trips, so there's so much of that. What is also interesting in the same context that, you know, we use the notion of taste. You know, sometimes you like to eat bitter, sometimes you like to eat sweet, and then that means you have taste, right? But the concept of taste actually can be applied to almost everything. You have taste in entertainment, okay? You may like go-and-talkie movies, or you may like dysfunctional family movies, okay? So you have the notion of your comfort zone. But what is interesting, and that's the gap that I see, if I would ask each one of you, who are you? Let's say from an entertainment point of view, you have no idea. You may use some very vague things. You might say, I'm an action person, which means nothing. You might say, I'm a comedy person, again, means nothing. It's so many kinds of comedies. So I think this being clueless, it's a very normal state of mind. And somehow the machine has to help you in this situation. So out of those four trends, that was really that we pay attention to. We thought that maybe we need some kind of analog future. And I'm not trying to take you back to the cave. I know that for most people, that when I say analog, they have this negative connotation. But analog is good because we are analog. So what are my expectations when it comes to technologies that are analog? Two things. And I'm really raising the bar. How about almost speaking like that and machine will understand you? Okay? So search like you speak. It's pretty demanding, as you can imagine. We speak so much things, we speak a lot of nonsense, and how will machine figure out? But we can see already a lot of technologies working along that line. And the second thing is, how about situation that I'm clueless, I'm not sure? Because I will be in a search mode when I know what I'm looking for, but sometimes I'm not sure what I'm looking for, and I need machine to help me to figure out. So we have this notion of passive and active situation. You are active when you are searching, and you are passive when you are in a recommendation. Although I'm using here the couch potato from entertainment, but it should be applied to many other domains. And I think the whole concept should be well applied to all the various domains. And again, I think it's pretty demanding, and we know that some companies work on that. We know that Pandora are working on the music genome project, something to classify content in a they have 400 characteristics to define content. Netflix working on some initial project to classify content. We at Jinni, we work to classify video, and we're looking in the future possibly to extend it into games as well as into books. So we know there is some work done in this way. So now, I was so vague so far, so let me show you, being an engineer, how down to earth, how it looks like. Let's move on. So in essence, our disruptive idea was, one, to create content genome. In the same way that we have the genome of our body, if you take a movie, what is the genome of that movie? What is the storyline? What is the mood? Where is it taking place? So we created a genome of 2,200 attributes. It may have obnoxious boss, dysfunctional family, life is a bitch, nothing goes right. So all those collections are things that typically happen inside the movies. Secondly, we created a user profile, and you will see in a second example, that defines us in the most detailed way. Sometimes it can be even embarrassing, and you will see a few examples, because like they said earlier, it is what it is. If that's what we like, that's what we like. And the third thing is, once we have good definition of content and good definition of a person, then we create what we call ontologies. It's a fancy name to create relationships between content to content, content to people, and people to people. Why? Because that will help us, and you will see in a second a few examples. So let's see a few examples. So we are all familiar with Breaking Bad. So we have developed technology that understands what Breaking Bad is all about. And it does it automatically by reading synopsis and reviews. So we have technology that understands text. And out of that, we can generate between 20 to 40 attributes. What we do is almost like reverse engineering, if that term is clear, the intention of the screenwriter and the director. If I would ask people who watch Breaking Bad, what is Breaking Bad all about? Typically, people can give 3 to 5 definitions, but we generate 20 to 40, so it's a very deep definition. Number 2, entertainment personality. Now here, you may have an embarrassing situation. You may have a slasher here. The other day I got a call from somebody who says, well, it says that I like interracial gory stuff. So I said, it is what it is. I mean, you look at the movies that you like, that's the way it is. I said, you're right. I mean, that's the explanation for that, it's a different department. But, we can just reflect. So we have the notion of entertainment personality. As you can see, I have 7 tastes. Each taste has a pretty deep definition, although you can see here only the short name, but inside, behind the scene, it has about 12 attributes. So collectively, because we are analog, the entertainment personality has nearly 100 items. So that's the definition of it. We are pretty complex creatures, right? Now, we get pretty interesting feedback when people see that. I can mention 2. Number 1, revelation. Now, people talk about religious, right? So people are very much think that this is a strong term. We also got a comment that it is like looking into my mirror for the first time. That's a very interesting expression. Let's move on. So I would like to show you implementation, because after all, we are a commercial company. We don't do things for the fun of it. And we have customers both in the US and Europe. So let me show you a few examples. For example, if I know who you are and I have your entertainment personality, now I can take the huge catalog and organize it around you. So we create the notion of user-centric guide. Number two, if you want to go outside your comfort zone and you want to search, you can search by all the terms. It's becoming a game. People told us, I'm addicted. I can play with this and it's very nice. Also, there's nothing personal against Julia. I just wanted to bring an example. But I wanted to make a point that the way we type things is not the way we speak, right? Because when you speak, you may exclude things. I might say, I'm looking for a Netflix movie for kids without violence. It's a very normal expression. You will not write it like that. So we developed something like that. And this is becoming the hard part of this presentation. We have a lot of mathematics around it, as you can imagine. I will mention two. And if you opt into the service, we actually look at your consumption and your behavior, and we try to understand what is it that shines out of your titles. So if I like Juno, American Beauty, and Arrested Development, somehow I'm attracted to this function family as a female. And if I watch Shawshank Redemption and Escape from Alcatraz and Papillion, somehow I'm attracted to prison stuff. Maybe different people can explain the reason, but that's not our department. Our job is to give you what is it that you like. Yeah. So that's this is very much a way of clustering who you are. The next algorithm and the last one is we are in a three-dimensional world, but when we build that object of 100 attributes, we create a multi-dimensional world. So we put your entertainment personality in the space, you put your friends in the space, and we calculate so-called the distance, okay? And how similar we are. Now you can see how good is your social network, and that's an interesting observation. And finally, I truly hope that we can build much better technology for the Thank you very much.